Okay, we're live, and Halla, I think I unmuted you, or whatever. So, hey everyone. So I tweeted today. I feel like the space between now and decision day feels very infinite. So I brought on Caroline from Admissions Mom, and of course my students to talk about how to de-stress before decision day. And I feel like even for me, I need to figure out how to de-stress before admissions day because I am completely stressed out. So does everybody want to introduce themselves? Let's go ahead. Do you want us to call you Admissions Mom here, or how do you want us?
I'm totally fine either way. Whichever. Admissions Mom or Carolyn both are fine with me. I go by both.
Okay. You want to introduce yourself to the audience?
Sure. Hello, everybody. I'm Carolyn, or Admissions Mom. I'm a Reddit A2C mod on applying to college. If any of you out there are from applying to college, hello. And I'm also an admissions consultant. I help kids apply to college from all over the world, and I try to do it using mindfulness and kind of using ways to help kids get through the entire journey with feeling just a little bit less stress. It's a stressful journey no matter what, but feeling just a little bit less. And I'm happy to be here today. Thanks for inviting me, Jen.
Okay. And Halla, you want to say hello and tell people where you're from?
All right. Hi, my name is Halla Ibrahim. I'm a senior who goes to Charles J. Colgan High School in Woodbridge, Virginia.
Stephanie.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Sylla, and I'm a senior at CD Hylton in Woodbridge, Virginia.
Okay, so we are, a couple of days ago, not even a couple of days, it's actually 7 days ago, it was 10 days out. Now we are 2 to 3 days out. What is your 2 to 3? It depends on whether your school is going to be accepting deposits on Monday rather than Saturday and things like that. Caroline, what's your biggest piece of advice going into the last couple of days before decision day?
I think wow. Like I have so much. I think the main piece of advice I have to give everybody is to kind of trust in the process that you will get there, that you're going to be able to make a decision and you will get there. And so it's just like going with your gut feelings while you're taking into account finances and vibe, and as you're thinking about it, and to use the resources available to you to be able to get there. So.
And Halla and Stephanie, in the last couple of days, what are the things that keep reoccurring in your mind and some of the thoughts that are happening for you? So Stephanie, I'll start with you.
For me, it's just being worried that I'm not making the right decision. Because I kind of have a decision in mind. I kind of know, like, I've already talked to my parents and we kind of came to agreement, but I still always worry that I might not be making the right decision, especially financially.
Halla, what about you?
I have the same thought as Stephanie. I'm honestly very worried whether or not I'm making the right decision. Sometimes I think, I like this school, this feels right for me. And then give me 10 minutes, I'm like, okay, maybe I like this other school more. And I just keep going back and forth because I'm scared of making the wrong decision.
And for me, I think it's funny because financial aid packages come back so slowly at a different point of the year, right? But now it's like, oh, here's a new financial aid package, or somebody's off the wait list, or and so things are moving. And I think the biggest thing for me to tackle in the next couple of days is, are we depositing or not? Are we holding spots at multiple locations? Are we asking for extensions? Because that is something, are we asking for deposit waivers? What are we doing? And how are we going to make the decision, especially when students are so much in flux? Do you have any advice for that? And the idea that you might not be picking the right college? I know in your book, you talk about not best, greatest fit, but best match. So do you have an idea of what to tell students in this situation?
Yeah, I really do, because I'm a firm believer that you really can't make a bad decision, because there's not a bad, if you make a decision that is not satisfactory in the future, you can always change it. I mean, there are changes to be made, but more than likely you're going to end up being happy wherever there. This seems like it is a huge decision. It's not even seems like, it is a huge decision, but finding the place that feels the best to you is the way to go. Now, I do think everybody should put down a deposit or use a deposit fee waiver at a school. You can't double deposit. So you have to pick the one that you want to do that with. Even if you're waitlisted other places, go ahead and pick a school where you want to be and go with that. And if there aren't schools right now that you want to be at, there are tons of schools, amazing schools that are still accepting applications. So it's not too late, even right now at the 11th hour, to apply to other schools and to think about that. And there are schools with money who are looking for amazing students like you all. Mm-hmm. And so I think the hard part of like waiting for financial aid packages is really hard. And I definitely think you should ask for an extension before you put down any kind of deposit at a school that you don't know what the financial aid package is going to be. So just tell them that like you can't make the decision until then. And I think colleges are pretty good about giving that extension, because you don't want to be trapped. And then the other thing is that often there's some leeway even after decision day, that like if you feel like you've made the wrong choice, you can usually kind of try to change it and navigate with that. But it's once you've made the decision, it feels so much better. I tell, and especially if you haven't done this, I tell all my students and all the kids I work with on ATC to make like a huge pros and cons list and stick it on your wall, because right now you've got all these ideas floating around in your head and they're just like spinning in there. And often writing down ideas can kind of clarify, get them from your head to the wall, you know, and so it's big. And for the 2 colleges or 3 colleges you're deciding among, put, pros and cons, and you'll start to see, and once you can visualize, this school actually has way more pros than cons, and make financial a big pro or con. Like that needs to be a big category. But the rest of it, like you'll start to see kind of eventually it'll start like becoming much clearer than just having it spin around in your head. And so I also really like tossing a coin, because then your gut, like Stephanie, you're saying, you want to know, right? Like,
yeah.
So, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I like what Stephanie did by talking to her parents about it, because I think and that's one thing I tell kids to do is like, tell your parents your choice. Like, don't tell the school yet, but like tell your parents your choice. And then how do you feel? Like once you've done that, how does that feel? Does it feel good or does it feel bad? If it feels bad, you might need to rethink. If it feels good and everybody's on board, then that probably has helped you make the decision.
Right.
And once you've made it, you're going to feel so much better.
Right. The one thing I have a concern about is like one of the schools that we reached out to, I don't want to name names. It was like, oh, well, if you deposit late, then you're going to lose housing. So what is your reaction when you hear that?
Well, excuse me. I mean, like if you deposit after the deadline?
Like no guarantee, you might be waitlisted for housing.
Yeah, that's tricky, because that's just schools putting you in uncomfortable positions. I mean, on the other hand, I know that their hands are tied too, because they, have to be able to give housing to the students who really want to be there. So, but I can't promote putting a deposit down just for housing if you're going to deposit somewhere else, though, because then you're taking the risk of being rescinded for double depositing, and you don't want to do that either. So
you really need to look at the policy of each school to see, okay, yeah, that's a good thing. Cause like for me, I know certain schools, so I can always say, okay, yeah, you can deposit there, you're fine. You can also deposit there, you're fine. But one of the things that I don't think I have communicated is like, it's because I know each school and what their guidelines are. One of the things that you talk about in your book though, is like, and I think when you're talking about college fit, this also applies to, as you start to narrow down, financials, geography, right? So how close do you want to be to home and things like that, especially if you are considering schools across the country, weather, which I tell people, do not send your kid to California or Miami unless you want them to close in California or Miami, because once they get a taste of that weather, it's really hard. School cultural and vibe, school size, potential major, and then your stats, which is more relevant to the other. But also, like for me, like what kind of experience do you want to have, right? Like if you're already burnt out and your school is going to be super competitive, do you want to be in another school where you're going to be burnt out again, or do you want to be at a school where you're a big fish in a little pond, right? So, Stephanie and Halla, what are some of the things that you are considering in terms of like deciding factors? Let me start with you, Halla. What is some of your deciding factors?
I think money is a large deciding factor for me as of right now. I'm waiting to see a financial aid package from another school and comparing those. I think that would be my biggest deciding factor. Another thing, I'd like to see the campus itself. Due to COVID, I haven't been able to travel, and I feel that I can't make a sound decision without seeing the campus and talking to students in the environment.
What about you, Stephanie?
Yeah, I would say that finances was the biggest decision for me, because like when I was creating my colleges to applying to the schools, I made sure that I was applying to schools that like I'd actually want to go to. So at that point, and I had already done all the research and all of that. So really, when it came down to make a decision, it really just had to do with the financial package.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, I like the other area that I always warn people about is Durham and Chapel Hill. There's something about going down to Durham and going down to Chapel Hill that will intoxicate you, but sitting down and actually looking at, like we were talking today about college scorecard, looking at the college scorecard, seeing if I'm going to be paying this much more, how much more am I going to be making? Is it such a significant difference that I'm going to be able to pay it off? How many years do I want my parents or myself to be paying off these loans? And what kind of area do I want to be in? Are there other things that you tell students to consider?
Well, I'm going to go back and just kind of revisit a lot of those things that y'all just already talked about. So I want to talk about the geography, because I think something people don't really think about a lot with geography, if you're going across the country, is the hidden costs that you're not necessarily might be factoring in that are probably not going to be part of your financial aid package unless it's included in merit money. So that's airplane costs, flights to go back and forth, or train or bus fare. And then once you've flown across the country, how easy is it to get to where you want to be from the airport? Because that's another cost. Is it a 2-hour bus ride? Is it $100 Uber ride? Is it, like all those costs can add up when you're thinking about it. Also the cost of and this is wherever you're going, but the cost of getting your dorm room ready. And if you're going from a warm weather place to a cold weather place, that's a whole nother level of clothing you need to buy. So you have to be prepared for that. It's like, so my kids went from Texas to the Northeast to go to college. And so we had to have a pretty hefty investment in coats and snow boots and lined jeans, things that we would have never really thought about. In Texas, my kids wear shorts pretty much every day of the year. So that's all those kind of costs you need to think about too. That kind of goes in with geography in my mind a little bit, and weather. And then I wanted to speak to Halla's about the visiting campuses and talking to students. Halla, you can definitely, and you might have done this already, but you can definitely reach out to the admissions offices and ask them, tell them you'd like to speak to some students. They are totally prepared for that, and they know that's going to happen. So, and usually they have students you can talk to if you haven't already been able to connect with students already. Also, since you're on Reddit, you can go to the college's subreddits and talk to kids there and ask questions there. And then as far as seeing the campuses, so I have this website called collegebusy.com. And I've tried to get every virtual tour I could possibly find anywhere and kind of put them all in one place to make it easier to find all the virtual tours. And it's completely free, available for y'all to just explore and learn about colleges. So if you're wanting a little bit more than what the college offers, which you should start there because they're the best ones, but then kind of there's other ones available too. And then the return of investment. And I'm glad you brought that up, Jenn, because that's something I've been thinking a lot about lately, is looking at, and you can find this research, but it's a little bit more, I'm trying to gather it and have it in something that's usable, but maybe Scorecard does this, where looking at what the typical salaries are for first year graduates, five years out, 20 years out, to see if that's going to make up for the amount that you're paying, because you certainly don't want to pay way more money than you're going to be able to earn. So, you know, that's definitely something that's important as you're thinking about loans, and whether you're yours or your parents.
Right. And especially for me, I like when my parents are older. So even taking into account, like my parents were closer to retirement when I was going to school. And some of my friends' parents were not. So like some of them still had loans that they were still paying off themselves, or others of them were like free from loans. So they had like a little bit more time. My parents didn't really have that time or capital. So it came down to me for the fact that Virginia Tech at that time was like $30,000 a year, which is unheard of now, but it was the cheapest option. And I really didn't apply very well because I applied to a very narrow pool, which I regret. But looking at that and saying, okay, I could pay this off myself if something happened, or if my parents want to retire a little bit earlier or things like that. Right. But I think the biggest thing is, I tell the story all the time. Like I was in a freezer once and we felt like we were trapped in that freezer, and the sign literally said, "Do not panic. You're not locked in. If you get there and you hate it, you can always," and it's not as easy said as done, but you can always transfer. And if you get there and you really hate it, then your goal should be to keep your grades up as high as possible. So at the end of the year, into 2 years, you can transfer out. So you aren't necessarily stuck. Girls, while you're hearing this, what are some things that are coming up and you're thinking about? Either.
Well, for me, yeah, like it's practical, like to think that, like, of course you can always get out of a situation if you don't like it, or if you like, of course, like if you hate it there, but like in the moment, it's kind of hard to think about that because you're like, okay, but I still want to give myself a good start. I don't want to be unhappy for that year or 2 years or whatever. So,
yeah. You know, the advice I give and I'm going to be writing about this pretty quick because it's in my head a lot. The advice I give to kids, because there are kids who are like going to a college right now thinking, oh, I'm just going to transfer. I know I'm not going to be happy. I'm going to transfer. I didn't get what I wanted. So the advice I give for kids who are even going to college thinking they're going to transfer is the exact same advice I give to kids who are not thinking they're going to transfer. It's keep up your grades, be engaged in campus, get to know your professors, go to study groups, join a few groups to be involved, because when you do your transfer application, you're going to need letters of recommendation from a professor. You're going to need to show campus involvement. You're going to need to have good grades. You can't just like get there and sit out for the year and expect to be able to transfer. So, you know, you have to force yourself to be engaged a little bit more either way. So I think with transferring, you enter with the same mindset that you have either way about it. But I definitely don't suggest that kids enter college thinking they're going to transfer. No. I think that it's not the way to go. However, I think for some kids, it feels good to know that there's options. It feels good to know that they're not locked in. And, and kids do transfer all the time. I mean, I work with kids every year who are transferring for a number of reasons, whether it's because they went to community college frequently, or because financial aid didn't work out after the first year, or their parents' financial circumstances changed. And then so they need to go for financial reasons, or just because it wasn't the right fit. It wasn't, what they wanted it to be, or their major changed. I mean, all sorts of reasons happen. So it's certainly not unusual, but it's nice to begin your freshman year thinking that like, oh, this is it. This is what I want. And so I totally get what you're saying, Stephanie.
What if you're, and Halla, I'll come to you in a second, but what if you're so miserable with all the options? And I mean, that goes back to like, why did you apply, right? But like, if you're so miserable with all of your options, what do you recommend? Do you recommend, okay, pick a college and just go for it? Or do you recommend being like, okay, well then go to community college? Like what, and I know it's always dependent, but what's your recommendation?
No. So I actually, on Reddit, we have, sorry about my dog. On Reddit, we have,
I'm waiting for Stephanie's dog to make an appearance.
Okay.
Yeah.
So on Reddit, I frequently will have kids reach out to me who haven't even gotten accepted to any school. So it's not even that they don't like their choices, it's that they don't have choices, because they, first of all, didn't come to our subreddit until too late. So they didn't realize that like, oh, I should apply to some schools where I have guaranteed entry or whatever. Anyway, so here are my 3 suggestions. If you're not happy, number 1, you can take a gap year. Go work for a year, go do something else for the year, depending on your financial circumstances. Rethink your whole list, rethink what you want in your life. I'm always a proponent of gap years. I think the more maturity you give yourselves, the better. And for some kids, I think that's a really good choice. Number 2, community college is always a great option if your home situation is okay, because otherwise, if you're having to pay for an apartment, it can be expensive and probably just as expensive as some other options. But if your home situation is okay and you can live at home and save some money, community college is a great option. Number 3, and this really might be number 1, is all these 250 colleges right now that are still accepting applications with money. Like there are great schools that I try to get on everybody's list way back in the summer of junior year that would love to have you. You know, they're aching for good, strong students, and they need the money, they need you, and like open your mind. You know, that's open your mind to all these amazing opportunities that are still available to you. So, and I have kids, you know, today I heard from a few kids who, you know, had gotten into some goals they just applied to last week. You know, so it's not too late. You know, it's still, and there are kids who don't even like key into the fact that college admissions is happening. Like you guys were so lucky because you were aware of it starting to make your list in the fall or the summer or whenever you got started. But a lot of kids don't have that kind of counseling support, parent support, and they don't even realize that like they have to deal with college admissions until like mid senior year. And they're like, oh, wait, I was supposed to be doing this a year ago. So then there are still lots of amazing options for them and for everybody.
Halla, what are you thinking about as we're talking?
I feel a little relieved because I was actually worried that I would be locking myself into a college. I find the transfer process a little intimidating, honestly. So I thought, okay, if I go here, I'm just going to have to commit myself to it. But knowing that I really can't transfer or just find another option that will make me happier does make me feel better.
That's good.
And then I guess the biggest thing is like, how do you maintain a healthy, is there a way to maintain a healthy mindset during this time? And I'm going to ask you as a student, but also as a counselor, like, are there intentional things that you do as a counselor, and are there intentional things that you tell students to do to maintain a healthy mindset during this time?
Yeah, so there are a bunch of things that I do as a counselor. I do meditation. I'd like to do one with y'all in a little bit. And I do yoga, and I walk a lot. Like I really try to take very good care of my physical and mental health. Because I work in a stressful environment. I work with stressed out kids and stressed out parents. And I like to be able to kind of like bring a sense of center to myself. That doesn't mean that I don't get stressed out. Of course I do. But here's what I've learned is that, and I tell this little story that I'll tell y'all, is that like some stress is good for you, especially as you're growing up. So when I say some stress, I really mean some stress. Like there's good stress and there's bad stress, like physical abuse, mental abuse, you know, verbal abuse. That's not good stress. But like stressing out about whether things are going to work out perfectly for you in college admissions, that's probably pretty good stress for you. Stressing out about like how things are going to go, that's okay to have that kind of stress. And there's this story that back in the 90s, there was this biome in Arizona, and they were deciding to grow trees so that like one day when we get booted off Earth, we can go live in Mars or wherever. And so they put these trees and they had perfect conditions for them, like the perfect amount of temperature, perfect soil, perfect nutrients, perfect amount of light. These scientists had really done all their work, and the trees were growing like really fast and like getting really tall. And then they started falling over. And the scientists figured out that what was happening is that the trees didn't have any wind. There was nothing pushing on them to make them grow. And without wind, trees don't grow what's called stress bark to make them stand up nice and strong. And so I want you to think of like some of this college admission stress, the healthy kind of stress, as like stress bark. It's making you stronger. You know, learning to deal with stress as you get older is a way to become just a stronger person in general. Now, I want to stress that there are good stress and bad stress. And so I'm talking about the kind of good stresses here, not getting into the college you wanted. something like that kind of is going to make you grow stronger in the long run. And so it's like, and I remind myself of that too. You know, I'm not growing any taller, but, you know, I'm still growing as a person, even at, you know, way middle-aged. And, you know, knowing that stress, even that I've had in the last few years, I've had quite a bit of stress. And like, I know it's making me stronger. I know it's making me develop and become a stronger person. And the same thing for you. So that's one. I have a ton of ways I can talk about.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think one of my things is like, I watch, somebody else said this and they're like, and it really resonated with me. Watch something funny in the morning and watch something funny in the evening. So I watch Bob's Burgers in the morning and I watch Bob's Burgers in the evening. I cannot, like, now I'm conditioned to the point where if I try to go to sleep without it, I have to have at least 2 to 3 minutes.
Oh, how funny.
Stephanie, how do you de-stress in these days? Or are you even thinking about de-stressing?
Well, for me, I don't really, it's really hard right now because we're still dealing with school. So while we're trying to pick next year, we're still dealing with this year's academics. And of course, with AP exams coming up and then figuring out graduation plans and all these random little things.
And you're planning like a friend, not like a friend prom, but like a prom alternative as well, right?
I was definitely trying to, but it's not working out the way I wanted. But yeah, there's a lot of like student activities that are trying to be planned, but it's like iffy, you know, like they're telling you things are happening, but you don't see anything happening. So it's very frustrating. But for me, I work out a lot. I'm an athlete, so I guess that's the closest thing that I would say to de-stressing. But I mean, I just look forward. I try to like be excited about it because I feel like this process can be so stressful that you forget that this is supposed to be exciting, that you're going to college. Yeah. And that you're going to be doing these things. So like, I'll do like things that aren't like too super college focused, like dorm shopping or whatever. I like always Wayfair, try to find discounts and stuff
and
like that.
That's so foreign to me because like right behind me is a box fan. Like that's the only thing that, I mean, I got that when I was there. I didn't even get it when I was here. Like everybody else was getting a box fan and we didn't have AC. This was old Virginia Tech, not current Virginia Tech. So we didn't have AC. Mm-hmm. So this idea of like a dorm room aesthetic or theme is so new to me. All we did was get like a comforter and twin bed sheets. And that was pretty much it.
I've been planning this since I was like 9. I know my color theme.
What's your color theme? Do you want to disclose it here? I don't want to like.
I mean, I don't mind. My favorite color is blue, so I'm thinking like a periwinkle with like silvers and grays and whites because I want the room to be bright. I don't want to like drag it down with dark colors. And my mom already knows that like this is gonna be expensive because I have really expensive taste. And like if my environment is not exactly the way it is, it doesn't matter where I am, I'm not gonna be able to do well. So those are just like little stuff that I try to do to like get excited about the process. So.
And then Halla, and I feel like we hadn't touched on this, like the fact that we are in a pandemic, you know, as African Americans, we're in a very stressful time. I feel like everybody's in a very stressful time as well. So Halla, everything is changing, right? So like not just for us, but for everybody. Everybody's relationship to the world is changing. Everybody's relationship to admissions is changing. Everybody's relationship to their school and their environment is changing. Halla, how are you dealing with everything at once? And are you finding ways to de-stress? I can actually tell that you're like a little bit less stressed because Halla, when she's stressed, has her hair down and she's pulling constantly on her hair. So like even in videos I have of her, she's just pulling, or she's like, you know, holding a pillow. So I can usually tell just by Halla's appearance where she's mentally at, like getting a little bit higher. But how are you de-stressing?
To answer the first question, how am I dealing with everything at once? I don't really know, but I can answer how I'm de-stressing. So I'm an avid reader, and in my free time, I like to go to the library and get some new books. It's hard to finish them with schoolwork on top of everything, but it's always nice to know that I have the options. I also started buying some books and collecting series, so books are one way to de-stress for me. Another way is I like to watch really funny shows and cartoons. I like cartoons and anime a lot, so I just watch like my funniest favorite series. I just start laughing really hard, and it helps me a lot, honestly. I also take walks outside when the weather is nice, which is getting nicer now, and those three things probably help me the most.
And Carolyn, like when they're talking about like even taking a walk, is that something that you recommend? Like if it comes down and you're just like, I don't know where to, because for me, the number one place is like, number one question is, where are you depositing though? Right.
Mm-hmm.
It is a walk going to help you come to a decision and try to visualize your life and then closing your eyes and be like, oh, the college that I see is this college.
Yeah, I think walks and showers do wonders because, you know, it's just like your brain just has time to kind of wander. I'm a huge fan of long walks, especially because it just allows your brain to have time to like settle in, sort things out, especially if you're not like I listening to music. Sure, that's okay, especially if it's songs you already know, and so they can just be repeated in the back of your head. But and so that you can give your brain a chance to just settle down. But I really feel like one of the best ways to kind of, once you've done all the pros and cons and thought about this, deciding about where to deposit, once you've done all the pros and cons and seen it, then I feel like almost the best way to do is to toss the coin. And once it lands, like think about what it is you're hoping it's going to be. Or once it lands, where are you happy or not? Do you feel that like sense of disappointment? Or are you like happy with that choice? Another way to do it is to think about, and I call this the 10-10-10. So think about how you're going to feel in 10 minutes about your choice. Think about how you're going to feel in 10 months or, you know, almost a year. And think about how you're going to feel in 10 years. You know, kind of try to look at it in a scale like that. And sometimes that can help you think about this decision. I think what you'll usually find is that in 10 years, it's going to come down to, is this college going to give me the opportunities that I want, you know, that I think I can have and be able to have the life that I'm wanting? You might not know what that is. You probably don't know what that is, but am I going to be able to have that opportunity from this college? Or is it going to be limiting me in some way?
And what would you say to people who are like, okay, but deposit day is like Saturday or Monday. I'm still not ready. I'm just not like, and not, I'm just prolonging the decision. I still do not know what to do. What would you say to those people?
Ask for an extension.
Mm-hmm.
Totally. But I'd try that coin toss.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I'd try the coin toss and see how it goes. But if you're still waiting on financial aid numbers or things like that, I'd ask for an extension. I think if you have everything you need to be able to make the decision, it's probably time to make the decision. Mm-hmm. But if you're waiting on financial aid, then I think, you know, you have to ask for an extension.
And the other question that I have is like, say you're in a situation where you do have all the information from one college, but you don't have the information for the other college. How do you talk to the college that you have and say, I need an extension. I'm interested in enrolling, but I just need more time. Is that how you frame the conversation, or is there another way that you frame the conversation?
I would probably ask for an extension from the one that you don't have the information from, not for wait list. I wouldn't wait on a wait list. So we're talking about schools where you've been admitted, right? And you're waiting for financial aid information or whatever else information you might need. I would ask for an extension for them. And then if it ends up working out for you, with that second school, and you want to put a deposit with them, then you can just tell the other school, you know, where you already have put your deposit down, no thank you. And just, you're probably going to lose that first deposit if you don't have a fee waiver. But as long as you're not deposited to two schools at one time, I know that you said, you know, some schools are okay with that, but I just don't want
that's more like, because I know the people, like, so,
yeah. Okay. You know, well, that's fine.
So
yeah.
That's a very different situation, right? Yeah. Like, I know who's cool with it, who, you know, who is not going to be upset with me. I usually had those conversations in advance, and like I've already gotten the deposit extension or been told like the limitations, like, yeah, we can extend it, but if you do it, she might not get housing. So like, is that going to be a huge issue?
Yeah.
Like, so, or like, I mostly work with girls, but for me, I know the situation, I know the circumstance. Yeah. And one of the things that I always recommend is like, have more conversations, and we're kind of very close to the end, right? But having that conversation, an admissions officer, I think people are always very worried that an admissions officer is going to be like offended if you're like, oh, you know, I'm still waiting to hear back on financial aid at this other school. You have to get out of the application mindset, and you have to be back into they want to enroll you mindset.
Right.
So saying to another college, listen, it's down to you in this other college, and I do not have my financial aid package back. So I can't just commit yet. That conversation is not going to hit as hard as you think it's going to hit.
No, and in fact, it might get you more financial aid money from the first school, you know, the one that you're telling that you're not sure about. I mean, if there's anything, my biggest piece of advice is to ask questions, and just communicate, because you're the consumer now. You know, you're the one that they're trying to sell to you. You're not trying to sell yourself to them anymore. Exactly. So just try to get as much information as you can. Also, like, try to keep the debt down. That's just huge, you know, unless your parents are okay, you know.
And also make sure that they're okay. Because I think a lot of parents are like, no, we'll take care of it. But like, say, like, the one question I tell students to ask all the time is like, what are the implications though? Like, does that mean that I can't get a car, or I can't have or I can't travel back and forth as much, or I might need to get a job? Like, what are the implications? Or I might be paying for grad school on my own. What are the implications of that? Stephanie, how do you switch from applicant mindset to you all want me to enroll mindset? Have you made that switch or no?
Yeah, I've definitely made that switch. I mean, just like go to your email inbox. They're sending you 20 emails a day. I mean, that says something. They obviously they admitted you and they want you there, and they're making sure they emphasize that. So, I mean, just looking at something simple as that, like, they obviously do want you there. And I've received like handwritten letters from schools. I've had like people call me, like students call me. So like, and I assume that's for most schools, they're doing something similar. So just think about that, and just, I mean, you have the choices, right?
Halla, are you switching from consumer mindset to from applicant mindset to I am now the one in the driver's seat, or have you not made that shift at all, or where are you at with that?
I'm trying to switch to the they want me mindset, but it's definitely very hard after so many months of hoping that they take me. But like Stephanie said, after seeing all these emails and getting from students talking to me, it's definitely helping me switch to, oh yeah, they accepted me. They do want me there. I just need to make a choice.
Yeah. And I think it's hard because also at this time, like, things just start to shift. Like, again, waitlist starts coming off, right? So it's very clear to me, like, if you get off the wait list and it's right now, like say you got off the wait list this week, obviously ask for an extension, because you might not even see your financial package or call to see what the financial package is. And then for me, the biggest question is, and how many years is this guaranteed, right? Because you can do an appeal. And I think this is the one thing I try to tell students. You can do an appeal, but your greatest position is when you are about to enroll. So the appeal the next year might not be the same as the appeal this year. So you have to mentally say to yourself, am I prepared if something else changes to pay the sticker price right now and about $3,000 to $5,000 more over the next couple of years? Would I be comfortable with that if this is the only 1 year price? Does this balance it out enough for me to do that. Are there other things that I'm not thinking of? I mean, I feel like you and I are very similar because when I have questions, I just bring people on and ask them and make it public. And you also get questions and then create posts. So are there other things that I'm not thinking about?
No, I think thinking about financial aid for all 4 years is really important. And I think having lots of conversations with your parents, hopefully by this stage, they are involved and have seen your financial aid packages, because I know for a lot of parents, if they went to college, even if they're my age or even a little bit younger, the price of college was way, way different. I went to University of Texas, and I mean, I paid my own way through college. I was able to work and pay my way through college, and nobody could do that anywhere right now without substantial financial aid. I didn't have any financial aid. I don't even know if it was a thing back then, but I think literally it was like $3,000 to $4,000 a year. And
Same.
I worked as a waitress and paid for it. I mean, my parents were like, go forth, child. But,
right.
But like now I realize that like, that's pretty much impossible for kids to be able to do. And so just make sure your parents are like very aware and on board with what's happening, because a lot of parents, if they haven't been through this experience, it's a huge sticker shock to them to see how much college costs. And frequently, sometimes they can afford it on paper, but there are all sorts of other financial needs that are going on in their lives. Like maybe they're supporting grandparents. That's not taken into account when you're given financial aid. Or maybe you have, cousins back in another country that your family is helping support. I mean, there's all sorts of expenses that don't go into account when they're dealing with your financial aid. So just because your parents can afford it on paper doesn't mean that they can really afford it. Or if they're a little bit older, like Jenn's parents were, you don't want to hit into their retirement, like they are going to need to be able to retire and live on that. So it's like all these bigger considerations. So I think asking your parents to be very honest with you, because so many parents just want to provide, and that's amazing. And, and I think they should also, but I think they have to be realistic. And that's where I feel like that's where I've had kids come to me transferring, is like the parents were just like, no, go. But then after freshman year, they're like, oh, this is really kind of tricky here. Like maybe this isn't going to be the best solution. So,
yeah. I mean, sticker shock, even though I know the prices of colleges, when I look at them, I'm like, that college is not worth that much. And then I realize like the other college that I'm thinking is not as less as I thought. Stephanie, sticker shock for you. How did sticker shock play into it? And I know that there was this perception going in with our group that like hard work will pay, right? Like, so merit aid will be a reflection of how much I worked, and that's not necessarily the case. So there was a lot of, like having to mourn the fact that I did work that really I thought was going to pay off and not. How does sticker shock impact your decisions, and how are they impacting the decisions moving forward? And then Halla, I'll come to you with the same question.
Okay, so for me, I had like 2 major disappointments when it comes to like sticker shock. Because as an athlete, of course, I always expected that I would play in college and then do that, but I got injured. Couldn't do that anymore. So that was really rough. Had to let go of that. And then, of course, I had this whole idea that I've done all these things. I've done all the things that you can think of that has to yield scholarship. That has to yield free money. I don't, like I of course, I knew the sticker price. I knew college was very expensive. I wouldn't say that was a surprise to me, but I always expected that I was going to receive these scholarships and all of those things because I did all the things, right? So when I didn't get that, that's where it was like, okay, so now I have to let go of that as well and figure out really what I can afford. And what I found is even more hard is when your parents recognize how much work you've done and they want to make up for what the system didn't. So that's the difficulty
powerful,
that I'm.
Yeah.
That's the difficulty that I'm having with my parents, because they're like, you've worked so hard, and themselves, they've worked really hard for me to be in this position. So they want me to go to this one school. And of course, it's like 20,000 more than the other school. But it's like, we see how much you've done. You deserve to go to that school. So we're willing to make it up. But then it's a hard decision on my standpoint, because I'm like, should I allow them to do that? Is that something that I should accept? Or should I just go with the more logical option?
And I think one of the things that Stephanie and I have talked about, the group has talked about, Halla and I have talked about, is like scholarship burnout. Like when you're just like, I cannot write another essay and be rejected again. And I felt like I went through that with the PPP loan and with my business. And so I'm always very conscious of the mental toll of applying and getting rejected or not hearing back, which is most of the circumstances with scholarships, or seeing your friends getting scholarships and you're not getting scholarships, or aid, and not knowing the intricacies and the delicacies. Like, it's not because they value this student that you're friends with more. It's because your EFC might be higher, your expected family contribution might be higher, and things like that. I mean, Halla, how are you dealing with sticker shock and conceptualizing like the debt and things like that? And then also the one question I'll ask you, and Stephanie, I'll come back to you after I'll circle back. But schools the one thing I don't like in the narrative is that schools are always constantly, or admissions professionals are like, well, you should know, you should prepare for that. You should prepare for the sticker price, right? But in the process of admissions, they're convincing students, apply here. We know it's expensive, but we're going to give you aid. We're going to give you scholarships. We're going to take care of it. You see schools that say like, oh, you don't even have to take out loans. And then all of a sudden you do have to take out loans. How are you dealing with that and reconciling that while you're making decisions, Halla?
I always knew that college was expensive, but I didn't realize until this year and getting accepted to colleges that the price of 1 year of tuition for one college could be equal to the price of a Lamborghini. And then throughout college, I could have 4 Lamborghinis instead of a college education. So I think I've just been trying to deal with the fact that college can get very expensive. And you see the numbers in front of you, you see like an 80,000 or 70 or 60,000, and you think like that's a lot, but you don't feel the impact because you're just staring at a number. And I'm just trying to think what over time, yeah, I see a number, and yes, they are getting aid, but over time, how is this number going to accumulate, and what kind of debt will I have to incur? What was the other question?
How are you dealing with the fact of not broken promises, but overselling the aid and overselling the scholarships?
It definitely hurts because I was hoping, I mean, I did get aid from schools. I'm very grateful for what I've received. However, a lot of these schools just make it sound like, oh, we're going to give you so much that you can come here and you can just relax and focus on your education. And that's just not true. So it's gone to the point where I'm thinking, okay, I can stay in state and save a lot of money, but that means giving up on the school that I thought I could go to for a couple of months or a couple of weeks. And it's just really hard trying to let go of one thing for the other.
And Carolyn, how do you suggest, is there a mourning process? Because I feel like we constantly try to tell kids, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. I didn't go to my dream college and I'm fine. But like, you have to take yourself back to being that age. Do you have a particular mourning process that especially when you got in, but you just can't afford it?
Right. So a couple of things about that I want to say. I don't know if you have juniors watching this, but for juniors, as you're thinking about applying to college, apply to some colleges where your stats are way in the 75th percentile, like way above theirs. So not the most highly selective, highly rejected colleges, because that's where you get the big merit money, as opposed to need-based money. So kind of like be looking for that balance. The other thing I want to say, just before I forget it, and then I'm going to get to your question about the scholarships. Really, in my experience, outside of colleges, scholarships are kind of like pointless, really. So the best merit scholarships you're going to get are from the colleges themselves, where your stats are way, way high. Okay, so now this mourning process, and it's huge. Like if first of all, I have this like little rant about dream schools. Like,
and I read that in the book and I was like, same.
Yeah, like there is no set. I don't want you to have a dream school. There are so many schools where you can reach your dreams because those dreams are in you. Those dreams are part of you, and they're part of what you're going to take with you. And you're going to find that not on every campus. I'm not going to say that. But you're going to find that in many campuses, if you take the time to find the schools like Stephanie did, where you're going to like, you can see yourself being happy at them all. And so you're going to find that. So as far as like going through the mourning process, I don't know if y'all are familiar with the children's book called Going on a Bear Hunt. Have y'all ever heard of it? Stephanie and Halla? Okay, well.
And I haven't, and I used to work in an elementary school. So this is going to be.
Oh my goodness, really? So
I think I know what you're talking about. I've never actually read the book.
Yeah, so there's a children's chant in a book, and it's called Going on a Bear Hunt, Gonna Catch a Big One. It's a beautiful day. We're not scared. And then you have to go through all these different things. So you have to go through like deep, dark mud. You have to go through swishy, squashy grass. You have to go through a fast raging river. And it's this book about basically about getting through bad stuff to get what you want. So you're not going for a bear, but you're going for some inner peace and some peace of mind about your solution. So you have to allow yourself to feel it. You have to allow yourself to, to like get in there and go through it. And in mindfulness, we have something very similar called RAIN. And it's first like accepting, well, the RAIN is RAIN. So recognize that you're having these feelings. Recognize that like you're disappointed or maybe even angry that it didn't work out. Recognize that you're like feeling feelings about this whole thing because it's stressful, scary, all disappointing, all these feelings. And then acknowledge it. So within yourself, go, okay, like, I've got this. I'm angry. I'm sad. I'm disappointed. Like things didn't work out the way I wanted, and acknowledge it and be okay with that. And then you go on the bear hunt, like calling to go on bear. That's where you investigate. Why? Why am I feeling this? Why is this situation making me feel this way? This is where long walks and showers can help too. What is it about my past few years that have made me feel this way? Is it because I've worked my ass off? Is it because I've worked so hard to get where I am? And like think about all the reasons like why this is making you feel this way. And this is the most important part, is realize that you are not your feelings. So, you're feeling angry, but you are not angry. You're feeling sad and disappointed, but you are not sad and disappointed because feelings come and go. And you get to be the one who watches your feelings. You get to be the observer of your feelings. And so just like happy feelings come and go, sad feelings come and go. And so if you know that, sometimes it can keep you from being stuck in the quagmire of those really down and dark feelings. I'm not saying don't feel them, because I think you should. I think if you don't feel them, you get stuck. But you have to allow yourself to move through them, move through that dark, dark mud, and allow it to happen and then come out the other side. I mean, I always tell kids, like, bash pillows. Like if you're mad, like go bash all your pillows, do some angry crying, kind of like really allow yourself to have those emotions and those feelings so you can get through them, and then like eat ice cream. And not to make light of it, but just to know that like in the end, when you've gone through these feelings, you are going to be okay. It doesn't mean that it feels good right now. And it doesn't mean that it's going to feel good next week. But in the end, you are going to be okay, and you will have learned so much about yourself from going through this process and this journey.
Y'all are hearing this. What's Stephanie? Stephanie is my most honest. Halla is like my sunshine. Stephanie is my like lightning. So Stephanie, you're hearing this. What are you thinking as you hear this?
Yeah, I definitely agree with everything she said. You definitely have to feel it. You can't just put it off and be like, it's okay. Because I feel like our generation, like that's our answer to most things. Like when something terrible happens, we're just kind of like, oh, it's okay. Like it is what it is. That's basically what we say to everything. But you have to feel it and get through it. Otherwise, it's still gonna linger and it's still you're still gonna feel these sharp pains once in a while once you're reminded about it. But you definitely have to go through it. It's not an easy thing to do. It's not an easy thing to let yourself go through, because you know how intense that can feel. So you kind of avoid it and kind of step around it, but you definitely have to get through it, or else it's gonna be hard. Yeah.
Yeah. And Halla, what about you?
I totally agree with everything Mrs. Mom said. Although I can't follow the advice sometimes, I do tend to hold things in. Sometimes I'm like, it's okay. Maybe it'll work out. I'll hold on to a small glimmer of hope, and instead use the hope to distract myself from feeling the sadness I have to feel, or the anger. And I may not be able to punch pillows because I'm not too aggressive, but I know that crying would be something that would help me a lot if I just allowed myself to do it.
Or even drawing, because she's a phenomenal drawer. So drawing out, but also knowing that, like, one of the things that I used to do in college when I would make errors of how much hours I needed to study and be up all night studying, and then essentially it'd be like 3:00 and I'm like, well, breakfast starts at 5, and always make that mistake. But I would say to myself, if I had to pull an all-nighter, I'd be like, in 27 hours, this is going to be over. And then I'd be like, in 25 hours, this is going to be over. In 23 hours, this is going to be over. While I think you should not go to a college that you're not going to thrive at, and we talked about that with Ann Ivy. I know, Carolyn, you are the same way. You shouldn't go to a college that you just are going to be miserable at, unless financial circumstances really place you in a position, or even you're not going to be safe at the other college, or there's another circumstance. It's going to be over in 4 years. And the biggest mistake I feel like I made this year in our group is, like, I put this, and I feel like Halla remembers this, Stephanie might remember this, but I put this chart in the group chat, and it was just like how long it takes off to pay loans. And it was like, oh yeah, $65,000, 30 years. And for me, 30 years is not that long, because I've been here 30. So I know that it passes very quickly. For them, they're like 30 years. And I'm like, guys, it's okay. Like, so, but 4 years might feel like a really long time when you're at 18 and you haven't had that many 4-year cycles, but it goes by so quickly. And I think knowing that allows you to kind of be like, even if I'm in a situation, I can make the best of it for 4 years. Caroline, I know you said that you had a mediation. Look at my lawyer brain. Meditation that you wanted to walk us through. So do you want to go ahead and walk us through
I do.
that?
I'm going to take one step back though, and talk about what you just said with the 4 years. And I definitely don't want any kid to be in a college where they're miserable for 4 years. I think that's not healthy. There are other options of colleges out there, so keep that in mind. On the other hand, like I tell kids who are applying, and Holly, you know this, with your extracurriculars, I never say, I don't know if you've noticed this, but I never say, like, do the extracurriculars you love, like do what you're passionate about, because some kids don't have the luxury of that. Some kids have to do the extracurriculars that they have to do. Some kids have to work. Maybe they don't love it, but they like have to do it. So I talk about doing what's meaningful to you, what's important in your life. And for some kids, that might not be what they love right now. And I think you can look at if college doesn't feel like exactly what you want right now, you can know that it's meaningful and important in your life and in your goals for the future. So if you're thinking that, like, I can get there, maybe it's not going to be the perfect situation, but I can find meaning. I can get the education I need. I can make the connections that I need. Then kind of changing your mindset about it, like looking at it that way, so that your ultimate idea is to reach a goal, which is graduating from college. So, and then yes, I would like to take you through a meditation. So there's one that I really love, and it's called equanimity. And equanimity, kind of, Stephanie, it kind of hits on what you said with the it is what it is, and you're going to hear that I say that. But here's the way I look at that with it is what it is. It's not just a basic acceptance of, like, I have to accept this in my life and, you know, just take it however it comes. The way I see, and I've struggled with this a lot in my own life and thought about it a lot. The way I see taking in it is what it is I have to accept this, and I have to accept that there might be something I need to do about it. So I accept that I'm feeling bad, right? But I also know I need to do something about that. I accept that I might not be happy about this college that I'm going to if it's not exactly what I want, or I accept that I'm stressed, but not just like I have to let it be. It's more like, yeah, I accept the fact that, okay, now I have to take some action, probably, whether that's internal, inward action, or external action. So if y'all want to go through it, you can, I don't know, have any of you ever meditated even shortly before?
Yeah, I have.
Okay, so you can close your eyes.
I love Stephanie's facial expressions.
I know, it's okay. You know what? You can close your eyes or keep them open. It's up to you. And it's just going to be a couple of minutes. It's going to be really short. But I do say, like, get in a really, like, a good posture. So nice straight backbone, kind of your head reaching toward the sky or the ceiling, your feet planted on the ground or on your bed if you're sitting on your bed. And I just want you to take a couple of deep breaths. Let's do it all together. So just breathe in. And then exhale. Okay, and now I want you to breathe in. And as you're breathing in, I want you to repeat these words after me. I am who I am. You can just do it inside your head or out loud, whatever you want. And then as you exhale, I want you to think, this is what it is. And now I want you to breathe in. May I accept things as they are. You can repeat after me, and then repeat this after me. May I trust in the unfolding as you exhale. Okay, we're going to do it a couple more times. Inhale and repeat after me. I am who I am. Exhale and repeat after me. This is what it is. Inhale and repeat in your head. May I accept things as they are. May I trust in the unfolding. And one more time. I am who I am. This is what it is. May I accept things as they are. May I trust in the unfolding. I'm going to give you a minute just to kind of think through that on your own. And then let's all take a breath together. An inhale. And then an exhale. And then just kind of gently open your eyes whenever you're ready. And I want you to be thinking about those words. Mm-hmm. You are who you are, no matter where you go to college. Mm-hmm. You're going to be the same person. This is what it is. You're going to have to figure out how to deal with it, whatever the situation is. It doesn't mean that you just sit back and let bad things happen to you. It means that you have to be proactive sometimes. May I accept things as they are means this is the situation I'm in. I might have to do something about it, but this is where I am right now. And may I trust in the unfolding means to me that you have it within you to make the things happen in your life that you want. It's there. It's there in you. Mm-hmm. So then you take it with you wherever you go and pull onto that sometime.
And I think that's really beautiful because especially, I wish somehow we could implant the hindsight, right? Because I remember being young and thinking, oh, my life is off track. Oh, it's not working out. Oh, I thought I was going to go to UVA for undergrad and now I'm at Virginia Tech. Oh, I thought that my grades were going to get me into this school for law school. And, luckily UVA was one of my top choices. So it didn't end up there. Or even looking back, I'm like, oh, I wish I had considered this or considered that. But I got to the point in my life where all the dots started to connect. And I think it's only in hindsight that you realize that you were in the spaces that you needed to be in. And one of the things that we always say in this group is we will grow where we're planted, which is hard sometimes to accept, but it's true because I do know some people who ended up at colleges where it just didn't work out or the circumstances, but those people are still living productive lives today. So even students I know that have dropped out or students I know that had to transfer or students I know that had to come home and then, work as an adult and then get a degree as an adult, it worked out in its own way. So Stephanie, Halla, what are your last thoughts going into? Actually, before we even go, I forgot one thing, and this is critical. I feel like, and Admissions Mom, you can talk a little bit about this because you've been here for, you've been doing this for a while. The pressure of recording yourself while every acceptance comes in, every rejection comes in, making a big pronouncement on decision day, even schools being like, make sure that you tag us and like, make sure that you have it in by a certain time. You're still in control. So if you're like, I'm not doing any of that, I'm not submitting it to you. I'm not going to let you all know. I will let you all know when I'm ready to let you know. College is for the same. I will deposit when I'm ready to deposit. And if you all won't accept that, then maybe this is not the right school for me. You've seen the pressure grow. What's your reaction to that, Admissions Mom? And then Stephanie and Hall, I'm going to ask you your reactions and your last thoughts.
I don't like the recorded, except when people record themselves, whether they're getting accepted or the decision doesn't go their way. I think I'm probably in the minority there with that. I mean, to me, I feel so much for those kids and the pressure that they're feeling with everybody around them watching. And I mean, on the other hand, when you see the ones who are accepted and everybody's cheering and it's a beautiful thing, it's hard not to be excited for them. But I don't feel like that's something that everybody needs to see. But I could, I just sometimes think I'm old. I'm an almost boomer. I'm not quite a boomer, but I'm an almost boomer, and it might just be because I'm old. As far as like the celebration of decisions, colleges are using it as PR, right? If they're trying to get you to tweet about it or tag them, that's just for them. If you want to do it, okay, I don't have a problem with it. I do have issues with high schools making a huge deal about decision day because there are so many kids who are not happy right now with their decision or don't know what their decision is going to be,
or are not going to college,
not going to college,
and there's not a big trade school, or
and it's even if they are going to trade school, it probably feels a little weird to them, and so I get wanting to create a college going culture. I grew up in a high school where there was no college going culture. I was one of about 10 people who went to college from my high school. So I totally get a high school wanting to create a college going culture by having kids see that. But I think it probably does more harm than good on kids' mental health at this point for those kind of days. I think maybe what I like to celebrate the most with my clients and with the kids on Reddit who I work with is when they've done their applications. Like, I really love celebrating that. When they've completed an application, that's when we like do all like the high fives and funny dances.
Oh yeah.
And, because that to me is the exciting. They have done their job. That's the most exciting part. And I like it when high schools celebrate that. When high schools celebrate, putting banners up before kids have applied, where they get accepted, okay, whatever. But where they have applied, I think is the hard work that has been done. I just think back to when my kids went to a school where it was a college going culture. Everybody went to college, but the kids on decision day, they would wear their t-shirts. And I remember, and my kids knew where they wanted to go. So I hadn't really given it much thought at the time, but I remember showing up there and, there were kids who just like had blank t-shirts on. Like they didn't know where they wanted to go. They
can't even afford the t-shirt. Like the t-shirts for colleges are expensive.
Yeah, no, they're super expensive. No, they were just like wearing white t-shirts, like, and because they didn't know where they wanted to go to college, or they couldn't afford it, or they didn't, they weren't comfortable. And I've had kids even today on Reddit tell me like, I'm not going to school tomorrow. Like, I don't want to be part of that. Like, I'm not proud of where I'm going, and so like, it breaks my heart because I want them to be proud of where they're going. On the other hand, I know that reaching their goal, like we just talked about, is more important. So.
Yeah. Stephanie, social pressure, and also any final thoughts?
For me, I kind of have like an odd standpoint when it comes to like the recordings of acceptances and rejections and stuff, because like it's all over the place. Like I go online and I can find like hundreds and thousands of videos. It definitely, I like the videos sometimes because it kind of takes me on the roller coaster, because I can kind of feel what they feel in that moment, so I can kind of relate to them. It helps me just relate to other people my age, because we haven't been like in school or anything like that. So I like that aspect. But what I don't like is that when someone gets into like an Ivy League, or if they get into like a really elitist school and they just push it out there on social media, the reaction is completely different from if they like, even when the same person got into like a state school and they pushed that out. So for me personally, I didn't announce like any, like even in our like group chat that we have together, like I don't really put anything in there like to say like, oh, I got accepted or declined from there. Because I feel like sometimes when, especially adults, because I'm the first one to go to college in my generation. I'm the firstborn. So everyone's kind of like, oh, what is she doing? Where's she going? This, and that. And then once they hear I get accepted to one school, they're like, oh, okay, that's cool. And then they hear another school, they're like, oh my gosh. And they're sending me text and phone calls. And I feel like they're using that school to validate me. And I don't like that aspect. So I kind of like to keep it. If you don't ask me, I'm probably not going to tell you, because I don't want to use that as a way for you to validate me as a person. So that's my standpoint on that. And as far as like my last final notes or whatever, you have to like be able to trust yourself and trust that you've been able to get yourself to this point. So you have to really trust your gut going forward and be like, I've been able to get here. So I can assume that I'm going to be able to get myself to where I need to be. And you really have to find that inner trust within yourself and confidence that you're going to be able to do it regardless of what the situation is, because you've been able to do it so far.
Yeah, I love that. And yeah, I've noticed that too. It's even for me, it's important to highlight this, because I didn't really post a lot of our acceptances until a kid reached out and was like, sometimes I'm like really upset, and I come to, especially as somebody who's Black and doing this, like I come to your page and I see this and I'm like, there's hope, there's still hope, right? But I also I posted something about rejections and nobody was like, yay! So there is, and I do notice with certain colleges, there is more of a reaction. With Halla, what social pressure and any last thoughts that you're having?
So my school is actually doing a decision day video where seniors can send in a picture of themselves in their school. I was not able to participate despite wanting to, because I don't know where I'm going, honestly. And it would have been nice, but it just, another thing, I also didn't really tell people about my acceptances besides my close friends. Partially because I don't want anyone to, I mean, I have really good acceptances from all types of schools. I got into some safeties, which I like. I got into Riches, which I like. However, I know that there's people who are going to way different colleges from me. And I didn't want to try and show it off, because I didn't want to show off in general. But even if I just told people, I know people can get the wrong perception. And maybe they'll tell me like, congrats, or they'll say congrats to me. But deep down, they could be thinking, oh, I'm just going to like my community college and I feel bad, or I'm just going to this random school and like she's going here. And I just didn't want to do that. So I didn't really tell other people about my acceptances. I'm okay. Like, I'm all for people telling me about the acceptances and sharing. I do see others using it as a way to think like, wow, you're so smart because you got into this school, instead of saying like, because if you got into your state school, people don't say the same thing to you. They're like, oh, that's a good school with maybe a nice smile. But if you get into Harvard and you post that, people will be so happy and they'll tell you you're the smartest person in the world. And I just saw that going around on social media a lot. And I saw a lot of people say they felt bad because of it. And I said, I don't want to contribute to that. On the recording videos thing, I did record videos for a few. And
I said to Halla, I was like, I usually hate reaction videos, but I love yours and I'm posting it and I don't care. Like, I was like, this is the best reaction video I've ever seen and I love it. Yeah.
I loved your video.
I love the video. I
loved the video.
I was like, this is a toxic part of myself and we will work on it next year, but I'm posting this video.
I have to look for it now. Is it on your Twitter?
I'll send it to you. It was just like such a pure video, and it was for USC, and it was just so like, it wasn't even that she got into USC, because the girls know I celebrate every college that they get into, and even if they're like, I don't really like that, I'm like, I love that college. So but that video, but Halla, go ahead. I'm sorry, I had to make sure
for that video, I recorded the videos more for myself and my family members, like my aunts that I'm close to, because I wanted to share the reactions. I did notice that if I got rejected from a college, my reaction was definitely more controlled or restrained compared to if I got in or waitlisted. But it was still nice to see how I felt in the moment. Like with my acceptance video, I didn't think I was going to get in that day, and I was very tired. So it was really funny just watching my emotions go from really tired and a little dead to I screamed in the video. So I record those more for myself than others, and that's why I haven't like shared them on social media. But if people want to share those too, that's also a really good thing. It's really fun to share the joy. But I also really like it when people share rejections or waitlists too, because it shows it's part of the college process. Because on YouTube, you only see the people who got into Halla Ivies plus Stanford reaction video 2021. So it's just really nice when people are more candid about how their college admissions process went, I guess. Yeah.
Well, I think my last, and admissions mom, I'll come to you after this, but my last piece of advice is it's your decision day. I don't think we had this. Like in 2000, and I graduated in 2002. I'm happy to still be here, so I'm not ashamed of my age. We did not have this. We did not have admissions. We did not have decision day. It was not a thing. We did not have, like, we just kind of like told each other and friends and whatever. We did not have this pressure. We did not wear t-shirts in. We did not have this thing. It was just like you got into college, you went to college, and like maybe somebody who did get into like a prestigious or whatever they call it school got a lot more attention, and we knew that that was going to happen. But it is your decision day. If you're not, I wouldn't say prolong it. If, like you said, admissions mom, like if you have everything, just make a freaking decision and like let it go, because it's not going to get better over time. More time is not going to help you. But if you do not have that decision and you're still waiting, wait it out and be okay with whatever decision, but you are also not locked in. If you go and it's so miserable that it's whatever, you can change your life. But I love what you said about your goals and your dreams are in you. They're not in some particular institution, some particular place. It is in you. Last piece of advice from our admissions mom. I'm so glad we got to actually meet, even though we didn't meet, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me here. This has been really awesome. And Halla and Stephanie, like I've learned so much from you. It's just like, I wish I had some of your like fire. Like it's amazing to watch you both and see, you know, how successful this process has been for you. My biggest piece of advice is to kind of like think about life as a series of zigs and zags. It's not a straight line. You're not, you know, gonna always get from point A to point B with a straight line. And, you know, there's zigzags, there's spirals, and you know, that's the way life is. And I think I'm so grateful for the many zigs and zags in my life. I mean, that like if I hadn't had a major zag in my life a few years ago, I wouldn't have even thought about becoming admissions mom or jumping onto Reddit to help kids. That took a pretty big zag in my life. And, you know, that I wasn't expecting, that I wasn't wanting. But like, I'm so grateful that it all happened that way for me. And I think that's the way, if you think about life, is like, I'm not always going point A to B. I'm going like A to B to C to D to F and around and back again. And I'm going to get there eventually. You know, focus on where you want to be in the long run, you know, what you want, and not necessarily what you want to be, but like who you want to be, like as a person. And then you're going to be there. And just so much love to you all. Like this has been amazing. And Jenn, I'm just in awe of you and what you're doing. So,
well, and I would say,
that I tell you all the time.
And I would say like my this group would not have formed if I had not completely lost my entire business during the pandemic. Because I've always wanted to do a group like this, not necessarily for admissions, but like, you know, something in tribute to my mentor who has passed away, Dr. Zenobia Hikes. I had said that I was doing it for years. I was going to do it. Oh my God. Like I started a Facebook page to do that. Never got around to it. And then the pandemic happened. I met Stephanie. I met Chloe. Halla met Chloe because only the pandemic allowed her to take a class at another school. So it kind of, I'm to the point in my life where like things happen and people will say like, you're just so calm about it. I'm like, because worse things have happened, and I am still here, and obviously it's going to work out because I choose to grow wherever I'm planted. So I always say that to the girls, but as we get closer to decision day, wherever you are planted, you will grow. And if you don't grow, I mean, there's like the guest room right here. You could stay for a couple days, probably not like a month or two, but like I would give you a couple days here to cry about it. So I think decision day is your day, and it could be decision next week if you need it to be. So I appreciate you coming. There is going to be a recording of this. I think it's on my YouTube page. I don't know what my YouTube page actually is. Stephanie is my manager. She'll help me figure that out, but I appreciate you all coming, and I'm going to end the broadcast. We'll still be here for a second, but thank you guys so much. And if you have any questions, you know what? We forgot this. Carolyn, you're actually at Admissions Mom. I'm at Jenn the Tutor. If you want to talk to any of the girls, you can reach out to Test Free Admissions on Twitter. Anywhere else that they can reach you, Carolyn? On Reddit.
On Reddit, I'm You Admissions Mom. You can find me there on Applying to College. You can find me on Instagram at Admissions Mom. On Twitter, I think I'm at _Admissions Mom. Somebody had already snacked Admissions Mom before I came along.
I put real. When somebody did that to me, the first thing I did was I did a long one, and then now I was like the real Jenn the Tutor.
That was smart. She doesn't use it. This person who did it long time, she never used it, but I couldn't get the name. And so _Admissions Mom on Twitter, at Admissions Mom on Instagram, Admissions Mom on Reddit. I respond to DMs on all of those all day long, actually. So it's like that's how I like to do my outreach.
Yeah.
So and then you can find email for me within those and send me an email too.
And so if you're panicking, just reach out. Just reach out to an adult. Like not even an adult. Reach out to a friend, but reach out. Do not feel like you're alone in this. Okay. All right. I'm going to hit end, and we'll be here for a second. Bye, guys.